The Fermi paradox. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, contains roughly 400 billion stars in the Milky Way alone, and has had more than enough time for intelligent life to emerge, spread, and make itself impossible to miss. Here's the problem. Physicist Enrico Fermi pointed out in 1950 that even at a fraction of light speed, a civilization could colonize the entire galaxy in somewhere between 2 and 4 million years. A cosmic eyeblink. We should see evidence everywhere. Megastructures, signals, probes, something. Instead, we have complete silence. No confirmed transmissions, no visitors, no ruins. Fermi's original question, reportedly asked over lunch at Los Alamos, was simply, where is everybody? That question has haunted science ever since, and everything that follows is humanity's best attempt to answer it. The rare Earth hypothesis. Before we get to hiding, there's a simpler explanation. Complex life may just be extraordinarily rare, and there's nothing to find. Paleontologist Peter Ward and astronomer Joe Brownlee laid this out in their 2000 book Rare Earth, arguing that Earth sits inside a near impossible combination of conditions. We're in the galactic habitable zone, far enough from the violent center. We orbit a stable, mid-sized star. We have a massive moon, stabilizing our axial tilt. We have plate tectonics recycling carbon. And we have Jupiter acting as a gravitational shield, pulling in asteroids that would otherwise repeatedly sterilize us. Microbial life might be scattered across the galaxy, but intelligent, complex life may require every single one of these conditions simultaneously. If that's true, the silence makes complete sense before we even consider anyone hiding. The great filter behind us. Robin Hanson, an economic theorist, coined the term great filter in a 1998 paper, and it describes a simple but terrifying idea. Somewhere between chemistry and a galaxy-spanning civilization, something kills almost everyone. The optimistic reading is that the filter is already behind us. We already survived the hardest step. The leading candidate is the eukaryotic cell, the type of complex cell with a nucleus that all animals, plants, and fungi are built from. It took roughly 2 billion years of only simple prokaryotic life before the eukaryotic cell appeared, suggesting it was almost impossibly difficult to achieve. If crossing that threshold is the filter, we were extraordinarily lucky to make it. Every cosmic coincidence Earth survived, the right star, the right moon, the right timing, could each represent a filter we cleared that almost nothing else did. The great filter ahead of us. The other reading of Hanson's framework is where it gets genuinely disturbing. If the filter isn't behind us, if something destroys every civilization before it can spread to the stars, that would equally explain the silence, and it would mean we are heading directly toward it. Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued in a widely discussed 2008 essay that finding microbial life on Mars would be catastrophic news, not cause for celebration. It would confirm that life starting is not the filter, which means the filter still lies ahead. The candidates are grim. Nuclear war, engineered pandemics, runaway artificial intelligence, or some self-replicating technology accident we haven't invented yet. Bostrom's point was stark. The more life we discover elsewhere in the universe, the worse our own odds become. The dark forest theory. Chinese science fiction author Liu Cixin laid out one of the most unsettling explanations in his 2008 novel, The Dark Forest, the second book of the three-body trilogy. His argument follows a cold logic. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is a silent hunter, and any civilization that makes noise gets eliminated. The reasoning builds from two axioms. All life wants to survive, and resources are finite. To an unavoidable conclusion. You can never fully verify another civilization's intentions. So the rational move is to destroy any civilization you detect before it can destroy you first. Broadcasting your location is an extinction-level mistake. The silence isn't emptiness. It's discipline, fear, and predator instinct operating at galactic scale. Earth has been leaking radio waves for over a century, meaning our position is already announced to anyone within roughly 100 light-years. The zoo hypothesis astronomer John Ball proposed in a 1973 paper in the journal Icarus that advanced civilizations know we exist and have made a deliberate, coordinated decision to leave us alone. Earth is a nature reserve. We are the animals. The civilizations watching have agreed, across the entire galaxy, to a strict non-interference policy, either to protect our development, to study us without contamination, or simply because intervention in primitive species is considered wrong. The terrifying implication of Ball's hypothesis is the coordination it requires. Every advanced civilization in the Milky Way must be aware of the policy and choose to follow it. Some versions suggest there is a release date, a threshold of technological or ethical development, after which contact is permitted. We may not have reached it yet. The interdict scenario. A variation on the zoo hypothesis imagines something more structured than a shared agreement. A single, sufficiently advanced civilization enforcing a galaxy-wide non-contact directive, something resembling the Prime Directive from Star Trek, applied not as fiction, but as actual galactic policy. One civilization old enough and powerful enough could maintain this interdict indefinitely, using automated systems rather than active enforcement. The contact threshold in most versions of this idea involves a civilization demonstrating genuine interstellar capability or intentional outward communication. Humanity crossed one version of that threshold in 1977, when the Voyager probes launched carrying the Golden Record, our first deliberate message aimed beyond the solar system. Some theorists suggest that if such an interdict exists, the clock for response may have already started ticking. We are simply waiting for whatever response looks like. The planetarium hypothesis. Stephen Webb discussed this idea in his 2002 book on Fermi solutions, and it is the point where explanations start bending reality. The planetarium hypothesis proposes that the universe we observe, the billions of galaxies, the cosmic microwave background, the stars stretching in every direction, is a constructed illusion projected around us by an advanced civilization to make us believe we are alone. The physical world exists, but the distant view is falsified. We look through our telescopes and see a rendered backdrop, not the actual universe. The civilization responsible could be hiding within that backdrop, operating behind a false cosmological curtain. The motivation might be quarantine, experimentation, or something we would have no framework to understand. It echoes Descartes' evil demon thought experiment, just scaled to the size of the observable universe. The Berserker hypothesis. Science fiction writer Fred Saberhagen introduced the Berserker concept in his 1967 novel series, but the idea has been seriously discussed in SETI literature since. The premise is that self-replicating killer probes, originally launched by some ancient civilization that may no longer exist, are still operating across the galaxy, hunting electromagnetic signals and sterilizing any planet that becomes detectable. The probes replicate using asteroid material, spreading like a slow mechanical plague. The civilization that built them may have died millions of years ago, but the machines execute their original programming regardless, automated exterminators with no master left to call them off. This explains the silence perfectly. Any civilization that becomes loud enough to notice gets destroyed before it can answer. If this is true, our century of radio broadcasts has already placed us on a list somewhere. The aestivation hypothesis. Anders Sandberg, Stuart Armstrong, and Milan Cherkovich published a paper in 2017 proposing that advanced civilizations aren't hiding. They're sleeping. The physics behind this is real. Computation is more efficient at lower temperatures, and the universe is gradually cooling as it expands. A civilization optimizing for maximum total computation across its lifespan would find it rational to power down now in the hot early universe and wait billions of years until temperatures approach absolute zero, when the same amount of energy produces vastly more processing. They are not afraid of us and not watching us. We exist in what they consider the wasteful, thermodynamically inefficient early period. In 10 trillion years, the universe will be unimaginably more valuable for computation than it is today. From their perspective, we are specks of activity in the wrong era. The transcension hypothesis, futurist John Smart proposed in a 2012 paper in Acta Astronautica that the silence has a simple explanation. Advanced civilizations don't expand outward into space at all. They expand inward. The progression runs from biology to nanotechnology to quantum computation, and eventually civilizations compress themselves into microscopic, extraordinarily dense substrates, structures sometimes called smart matter, where they experience subjective time at staggering rates, billions of years of inner experience per second of external time. From the outside, a transcended civilization would simply vanish. No megastructures, no signals, no colonies. They disappear not into space, but into inner space, operating at scales and in physical domains we cannot yet detect or meaningfully imagine. The universe may be full of civilizations that reached this transition point and turned inward, leaving nothing behind that radio telescopes or optical surveys could ever find. Percolation theory. Geoffrey Landis applied mathematical models from physics to interstellar colonization in a 1998 paper for the Journal of the British Interplanetary Society, and the results were unexpectedly reassuring. When you model colonization as a spreading probabilistic process, where each civilization has some probability of choosing to colonize nearby star systems, the mathematics produces patchy, uneven expansion with enormous voids between clusters. For most realistic colonization probability values, large regions of the galaxy remain unreached indefinitely, not because they were avoided or filtered, but simply because the random spread never reached them. Earth may sit in one of those statistical voids, tens of thousands of light years from the nearest cluster of colonized systems. No conspiracy, no filter, no fear. Just the mathematics of random spreading across an enormous, mostly empty galaxy, failing to reach our quiet corner of it. The Gaian bottleneck astrobiologists Charles Lineweaver and Aditya Chopra proposed in a 2012 paper in the journal Astrobiology that life may emerge readily on wet, rocky planets, but almost always dies before it can stabilize its host world. Young planets are volatile. Temperatures swing. Atmospheres leak. Geological activity fluctuates wildly. Earth survived because early microbial life evolved quickly enough to begin regulating the planet's temperature, atmosphere, and chemistry, creating a feedback loop that kept conditions livable long enough for complexity to emerge. Mars had liquid water roughly 4 billion years ago and may briefly have hosted microbial life that died before it could do the same. The bottleneck is not about intelligence. It's about whether simple life survives its first few 100 million years. The universe may be littered with planets that briefly flickered with life and then went dark before anything could hold on. The Radio Silence Theory Project. OSMA, launched by astronomer Frank Drake in April 1960, pointed radio telescopes at two nearby stars, Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani, and heard nothing meaningful. We've been listening ever since, and the silence holds. But the problem may be our instruments, not the universe. Civilizations may simply stop using radio within a century of inventing it. Human civilization is already doing exactly that, moving from broad radio broadcasts toward tightly beamed, encrypted fiber and laser communications. Our own radio signature is already shrinking. A civilization 1,000 years ahead of us would be completely radio dark by our standards, communicating through methods we haven't theorized yet. We may be doing the equivalent of listening for smoke signals from a civilization using something closer to quantum entanglement. The search has been heroic, and the silence is real, but we may simply be looking in completely the wrong place. They're already here. Rather than hiding at interstellar distance, advanced civilizations may have reached our solar system already and be operating in ways beneath our detection threshold. The interstellar object Oumuamua, detected in October 2017, displayed an anomalous acceleration that could not be explained by outgassing or solar radiation pressure alone, a fact published in peer-reviewed literature, not fringe speculation. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb pointed to this as motivation for the Galileo project, launched in 2021, which actively searches for anomalous objects near Earth using rigorous scientific methodology. Candidates for hiding locations include the dark side of the moon, gravitationally stable Lagrange points, deep ocean floors, or microscopic probes embedded in asteroid material that would be indistinguishable from rock. The absence of obvious contact does not mean absence of presence. We may be the least observant species in a solar system that has already been cataloged. The simulation hypothesis. Nick Bostrom published a formally argued paper in the journal Philosophical Quarterly in 2003, making a logical case that deserves to be taken seriously. If it is possible to simulate conscious minds, and if advanced civilizations would run enormous numbers of such simulations, then statistically, most minds in existence live inside simulations rather than base reality. In this scenario, the universe is not 13.8 billion years old, with 400 billion stars. Those are rendered background assets. The simulation only fully resolves what we observe closely. Aliens are absent because the simulator chose not to populate the universe with them, or the simulation was specifically designed to isolate one conscious species as the subject of an experiment, making first contact architecturally impossible. The silence is not a natural outcome. It is a design choice, built into the rules of the environment at a level we cannot reach, test, or appeal. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.